My father was suddenly seized with colic. He got up and went toward the gypsy, asking politely in German, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the lavatories are?" The gypsy looked him up and down slowly from head to foot, as if he wanted to convince himself that this man addressing him was really a creature of flesh and bone, a living being with a body and a belly. Then, as if he had suddenly woken up from a heavy doze, he dealt my father such a clout that he fell to the ground, crawling back to his place on all fours. I did not move. What had happened to me? My father had just been struck before my very eyes, and I had not flickered an eyelid. I had looked on and said nothing. Yesterday, I should have sunk my nails into the criminal's flesh. Had I changed so much then? So quickly? Now remorse began to gnaw at me. I thought only, I shall never forgive them for that. My father must have guessed my feelings. He whispered in my ear, "It doesn't hurt." His cheek still bore the red mark of the man's hand. "Everyone outside!" 10 gypsies had come and joined our supervisor. Whips and truncheons cracked round me. My feet were running without my being aware of it. I tried to hide from the blows behind the others, the spring sunshine. "Form fives!" The prisoners, whom I had noticed in the morning, were working at the side. There was no guard near them, only the shadow of the chimney. Dazed by the sunshine and by my reverie, I felt someone tugging at my sleeve. It was my father. "Come on, my boy." We marched on. Doors opened and closed again. On we went between the electric wires. At each step, a white placard with a death's hand on it stared us in the face. A caption: "Warning, danger of death." Mockery. Was there a single place here where he were not in danger of death? The gypsies stopped near another barracks. They were replaced by SS who surrounded us. Revolvers, machine guns, police dogs. The march had lasted half an hour. Looking around me, I noticed that the barbed wires were behind us. We had left the camp. It was a beautiful April day. The fragrance of spring was in the air. The sun was setting in the west. But we had been marching for only a few moments when we saw the barbed wire of another camp. An iron door with this inscription over it: "Work is liberty. Auschwitz." First impression. This was better than Birkenau. There were two-storied buildings of concrete instead of wooden barracks. There were little gardens here and there. We were led to one of these prison blocks. Seated on the ground by the entrance, we began another session of waiting. Every now and then someone was made to go in. These were the showers, a compulsory formality at the entrance to all these camps. Even if you were simply passing from one to the other several times a day, you still had to go through the baths every time. After coming out from the hot water, we stayed shivering in the night air. Our clothes had been left behind in the other block, and we had been promised other outfits. Toward midnight, we were told to run. "Faster!" shouted our guards. "The faster you run, the sooner you can go to bed." After a few minutes of this mad race, we arrived in front of another block. The prisoner in charge was waiting for us. He was a young Pole who smiled at us. He began to talk to us, and despite our weariness, we listened patiently. "Comrades, you're in the concentration camp of Auschwitz. There's a long road of suffering ahead of you, but don't lose courage. You've already escaped the gravest danger, selection. So now muster your strength and don't lose heart. We shall all see the day of liberation. Have faith in life. Above all else, have faith. Drive out despair, and you will keep death away from yourselves. Hell is not for eternity." And now a prayer, or rather a piece of advice. Let there be comradeship among you. We are all brothers, and we are all suffering the same fate. The same smoke floats over all our heads. Help one another is the only way to survive. Enough said. You're tired. Listen. You're in block 17. I am responsible for keeping order here. Anyone with a complaint against anyone else can come and see me. That's all. You can go to bed. 2 people to a bunk. Good night. The first human words. No sooner had we climbed into the bunks than we fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, the veteran prisoners treated us without brutality. We went to the wash place. We were given new clothes. We were brought black coffee. We left the block at about 10 o'clock so that it could be cleaned. Outside, the sunshine warmed us. Our morale was much improved. We were feeling the benefit of a night's sleep. Friends met each other, exchanged a few sentences. We talked of everything except those who had disappeared. The general opinion was that the war was about to end. At about noon, they brought us soup, a plate of thick soup for each person. Tormented though I was by hunger, I refused to touch it. I was still the spoiled child I had always been. My father swallowed my ration. In the shade of the block, we then had a little siesta. He must have been lying, that SS officer in the muddy barracks. Auschwitz was, in fact, a rest home. In the afternoon, we were made to line up. 3 prisoners brought a table and some medical instruments. With the left sleeve rolled up, each person passed in front of the table. The 3 veterans, with needles in their hands, engraved a number on our left arms. I became A7713. After that, I had no other name. At dusk, roll call. The working units came back. Near the door, the band was playing military marches. Tens of thousands of prisoners stood in rows while the SS checked out their numbers. After roll call, the prisoners from all the blocks scattered to look for friends, relatives, and neighbors who had arrived in the last convoy. Days passed. In the morning, black coffee. At noon, soup. By the 3rd day, I was eating any kind of soup hungrily. At 6 p.m., roll call, then bread and something. At 9 o'clock, bed. We had already been 8 days at Auschwitz. It was during roll call. We were not expecting anything except the sound of the bell, which would announce the end of roll call. I suddenly heard someone passing between the rows asking, "Which of you is Wiesel of Saget?" The man looking for us, was a bespectacled little fellow with a wrinkled, wizened face. My father answered him, "I'm Wiesel of Saget." The little man looked at him for a long while, with his eyes narrowed. "You don't recognize me? You don't recognize me? I'm a relative of yours, Stein. Have you forgotten me already? Stein! Stein of Antwerp. Reisel's husband? Your wife was Reisel's aunt. She often used to write to us, and such letters." My father had not recognized him. He must scarcely have known him, since my father was always up to his neck in the affairs of the Jewish community, and much less well versed in family matters. He was always elsewhere, lost in his thoughts. Once a cousin came to see us at Saget. She had been staying with us and eating at our table for over a fortnight before my father noticed her presence for the first time. No, he could not have remembered Stein. As for me, I recognized him at once. I had known his wife Wiesel before she left for Belgium. He said, "I was deported in 1942. I heard that transport had come in from your region, and I came to find you. I thought perhaps you might have news of Wiesel and my little boys. They stayed behind in Antwerp." I knew nothing about them. Since 1940, my mother had not had a single letter from them. But I lied. "Yes, my mother's had news from your family. Wiesel is very well, the children too." He wept with joy. He would have liked to stay longer to learn more details, to drink in the good news. But an SS came up and he had to go, calling to us that he would be back the next day.